I thought escaping to a quiet guest room would help, but then Luke followed me upstairs and he looked at me with his hunger. His look. Too serious. His body. Too close. What? Thanksgiving at Luke's house used to be warm, even fun. But this time, it felt like I was standing in the middle of a crowd with no way out. The scent of roasted turkey and cider filled the air, laughter echoing the room. I tried to feel comfortable because, well, these were Luke's friends, and I've known them for years. But tonight something was off. I could feel it in my bones. Everyone was staring. And then there was Luke, standing next to the fireplace, effortlessly commanding attention. His laugh was deep and full and carried over the chatter, making heads turn, mine included. He was dressed casually, but everything about him exuded an unshakable confidence. At one point his gaze caught mine and he smirked, a slow, lazy curl of lips that sent heat straight to my face. I looked down, pretending to focus on the smashed potatoes on my plate, but my stomach was flipping like a damn gymnast. Soon we were crammed around the couch, bellies full of food. The adults went outside and we gathered to chat. I was doing my best to stay invisible, which was definitely not an easy task when you were sitting directly across from Luke, whose long legs seemed to invade my space. "So, Max," one of our friends, Emily, said, breaking me out of my daze, "got any new dating stories lately? Exciting ones? Like, did anyone accidentally call you by the wrong name or something?" She grinned, clearly referencing her own story from the last time when her date called her Danny at the movies. "I'm not dating anyone," I replied, a little too defensive and hated myself for it. Sasha, our other friend, gasped dramatically, waving her glass of wine at me like it was a magic wand. "What? You're single again? This is a travesty! You're cute, kind, and you make mean pumpkin pies." "I bought the pie," I muttered, but she ignored me. "You should be drowning in dates, dude," she continued. "What's your deal? Are you on the apps? I mean, all of them." I tried so hard not to cringe as every pair of eyes turned to me. "No," I said. "Dude," Luke cut in, his voice teasing, "Sasha's right. Your bio could just say bakes great pies and you'd have like 1,000 swipes." "I'd swipe for pie," Emily added. "Guys, I won't be putting any pie in my non-existent bio," I snapped a bit, but my words got swallowed up in the wave of laughter. Luke leaned forward. "So what's your type then? We don't know since you don't keep anyone long enough for us to deliberate." His tone was casual, but there was something in his eyes, something playful that made me twitch. I couldn't say you, so I just sighed. "Yeah, spill," Sasha cheered. "Tall, short, super nerdy." "Boring," Emily interjected. "We need a new story. Tell us about your worst date." "Oh, please," Sasha groaned. "Max is too sweet for that. I bet he hasn't had one bad date. He's the guy who'd say, 'Hey, you're amazing, but I'm emotionally unavailable right now,' just to not make the person feel too bad." They laughed all together again, and I felt my face heat up. "I didn't know you all thought I was this angelic man whore," I joked. "Let's talk about your dating disasters, Sasha. Did you go out with a guy who brought his mom on the first date?" She groaned, covering her face. "She ordered a salad for me. A salad! Ugh! I don't even like remembering it." The laughter came back, and it almost made me relax a bit, until Sasha's eyes lit up like she'd have the best idea ever. "You know what's funnier?" Her voice cut through the noise. "Max, your worst date ever would be Luke if you ever gave him a shot." The room fell silent. She was the only one still laughing. My mouth froze, every muscle in my body stiff. "Really, Sasha?" Luke said, raising an eyebrow and his mouth quirking into a lopsided grin. "You've been watching too many Korean dramas." "What?" she said. "It's not like I'm the only one who noticed. Luke has had a crush on you for ages. Seriously, it's like watching a rom-com in real time." Emily choked on her wine. "And tonight, he's having serious trouble taking his eyes off you," she added. "Oh my god, she's right. Luke's been doing the look," The lingering one. If this was a movie, you'd be snowed in together by now. I felt like the floor was opening. Girls, Luke cut in smoothly, though his smirk didn't get away. I'll take the wine off of you. Oh, you better not, Sasha shot back. Then why have you been looking at Max like he's tonight's dessert? Explain that, Luke. He didn't miss a beat. Whilst for me, I was so red I could feel my cheeks burning. Maybe I just have a sweet tooth. The two of them burst into laughter again. This is so much better than pie, Emily said, nudging Sasha. Keep going. No, let's not keep going, I muttered. Max, seriously, she spoke again, relentlessly. Luke's got it bad for you. Rom-com level of bad. Seriously, it's kind of adorable. Luke's voice pierced the laughing, even though his tone remained light. That's enough, Sasha. You're making him uncomfortable. She blinked. We're just teasing. Luke shook his head, glancing seriously at me despite the soft smile on his face. It's not funny if one of the parts is disliking. My chest tightened. Was that all true? Or just a cheap scheme? I was so confused by what I'd heard and how I felt that all I could do was stand up. Bathroom. Classic rom-com exit, Sasha screamed as I left the table. But before I disappeared completely, I caught a final look from Luke. And then I went upstairs wishing I could just go home, which I do after I calm down. Moments later, I heard a soft knock at the room's door, and I knew who it was before he even spoke. My heart sank, and I sighed again. Running off already? His voice floated in, casual and light, but I couldn't stop noticing the edge of something deeper beneath it. I didn't respond. Maybe if I stayed still, he'd think I wasn't there. Didn't work. He opened the door anyway, stepping inside and closing it behind him with a soft click. My gaze locked on the floor, my mind racing. What was he even doing here? Wasn't I embarrassed enough for one night? Won't even look at me, huh? Luke asked in a playful yet gentle tone now. He stepped in closer, and I felt the air shift. It was somehow like the space between the two of us had just gotten smaller. I needed some air, I mumbled. He chuckled softly, and that somehow was both infuriating and comforting. Max, he said, you really think I haven't noticed? My stomach hurt. What? I said a little too quickly. How did things turn out against me? You, he replied, and my throat went dry. How you look at me. How you don't look at me. I swallowed with difficulty. You're imagining things, I muttered, desperate to shut all of that down before it went any farther. But Luke wasn't backing off. Come on, Max. I've known you for ages. My heart tightened, and I gripped the edge of the bed so hard my hand ached. I could deny it, lie, make some stupid joke and brush it off, but I felt that anything I said wouldn't work. He wouldn't let me get away with murder, because he was standing there, looking at me as if he already knew everything. I stood up, sighed loudly, and spilt. I like you, okay? That's what you want to hear? My voice cracked, the desire to cry coming up. Funny thing to say, considering I was just told otherwise. I laughed bitterly. Silence. Oh, great. Now he shut his mouth down. I finally glanced up to look at him, trying to pull together whatever pride I had left. But Luke wasn't laughing. Instead, he was looking at me with a strange expression. Soft, warm, and intense. As if he was seeing something he hadn't expected. Slowly, he closed the distance between us by standing right in front of me. Hey, he said gently, his voice cutting through my panic. I was going to respond, but his fingers reached out, brushing my chin, tilting my face up to meet his eyes that searched for mine with some kind of hunger. His gaze was steady and sure, and for a moment, I forgot how to breathe. Then he kissed me. Like that. Nothing before. No explanations. Just his mouth upon mine. It was a slow kiss, like he wanted to savor every second of it. My mind was blank, Suddenly, the only thing that existed was him. His scent, his lips, his warmth, the way his hands caressed my shoulders and my face. I didn't even realize I was kissing him back until I felt my hands clutching the front of his collar shirt. I gave in. Gave in completely and let him take whatever I still had. And when he finally pulled away, we were both breathless. My heart was beating so loud I was a bit deaf. Luke gave me a mischievous but soft smile. His thumb grazed my face one last time before he stepped back. "We'll talk later," he said simply. And then he left, just like that. For a while, I just stood there trying to calm my breathing, my thoughts, and my confusion. Seriously, what the... The next day, I was in bed still. The kiss replayed in my mind so many times I could basically relive it. His lips on mine, his hands around my face and shoulder, his breathless departure, and mostly, his eyes seemed like he wanted to ask, was that okay? It was more than okay. It was perfect. Too perfect. And that's the problem. The morning was almost in half, and it hadn't helped much to chase away the storm inside my chest. I needed real air. I grabbed my jacket, shoving my arms into the sleeves, and slipped out of the house as quietly as I could. I didn't want to wake up my roommates. The streets were mostly empty, and the crisp air bit against my face as I walked. My thoughts chased themselves in circles. What was that kiss? What did it mean to him? Was he toying with me? If yes, that'd be seriously sad, because we've been best friends for as long as I can remember. Or worse, was I just convenient? That hypothesis just crossed my mind when my phone buzzed inside my pocket. I froze mid-step. A chill ran up my spine that had nothing to do with the morning cold air. It was Luke, of course. I didn't even have to look at the screen, which I did a fraction of a second later. "Morning, bad texter. You okay?" I read it again and again. The casual tone and the usual nickname. It felt so normal, like last night never happened. My thumb hovered over the keyboard. I could say something back, crack a joke or pretend nothing was different, or I could ask him straight out, "What did it mean to you?" Instead, I turned off the screen and shoved the phone back like it was a ticking bomb. A few minutes later, I found myself around the small cafe I loved. The smell of freshly brewed coffee didn't help to untangle the knot in my chest, though. I was stirring sugar inside my cup when I heard it. A laugh. His laugh. My head snapped up, and there he was, Luke, sitting at a corner table, leaning back in his chair as he laughed at something the person across him was saying. My stomach rejected the coffee instantly. It wasn't fair how good he looked, and the way he smiled. It wasn't for me. I shook my head. That didn't mean anything to me. He was just being him. The guy sitting with him had tousled dark hair and a sharp jawline, and he leaned closer while laughing along with him. I wanted to disappear. It felt like watching a scene I didn't belong to, a moment I had no right to interrupt. I saw Luke pick up his phone mid-conversation, and a second later my phone buzzed again. My pulse spiked when I saw his name on the screen again. "Hey, seriously, talk to me when you're free, okay? I'm here, Max." I clenched my jaw, my mind springing again. He was like that, yet he stopped midway through to text me. What was I doing? Jesus, I never felt so lost before. He was my friend. It was obvious he'd text me and try talking to me. We did that almost every day. Why was I expecting something to be different? Okay, time to leave. I stood more abruptly than I wanted, and my chair scraped against the floor. I didn't mind. I just had to get out there. But before I could reach the door, I heard my name. Max. I cursed silently. Turning slowly, I found him there. Holding his to-go cup of coffee, his friend was still at the table, watching us curiously. He tilted his head, his brow furrowed in that soft but concerned way that always made my world settle down. Not this time, though. Hey, dude, how are you? I swallowed hard. My throat suddenly dried. Yeah, I just... I gestured vaguely to the coffee and toward the door. I came quickly to wake up properly. Holiday's almost over, and I'm still behind at work. His eyes searched mine, and for a while it felt like he could see behind my lies, and I was screwed. But then he smiled, warm as always. Well, don't disappear on me, okay? I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. Going away, my chest ached. I wanted to know if that kind of smile was just for me, or if he gave that out to everybody. What I always thought it was until we kiss. But the fear was louder than anything, and for now, that was all I could hear. My fears. 2 days later. By the next day, I thought I had gotten away from it. I really believed that if I ignored my phone long enough, I could pretend everything was fine, but I couldn't be more wrong. The knock at my door came suddenly and unannounced, breaking the silence in my apartment. My roommates weren't home, and they had the key, so... My heart skipped a beat, and I stared at the door like it was some kind of test I was definitely not ready for. I didn't expect him to come by, not after all that. But of course, he'd show up. I should have known. I opened the door reluctantly, trying to keep it cool, but the instant I saw him standing there with that familiar smile tugging around the corner of his lips, everything inside of me ached. I stepped aside, not saying anything, just letting him in. "Hey," he said, "just checking on my best friend." I heard the words, but I knew inside that wasn't just a friendly visit. There was something in his eyes that I hadn't seen before. Something like there was something unspoken between us. "I'm alive," I said while gesturing toward the couch, feeling awkward inside my own house. He sat down, but we kept quiet for a while. No small talk, only dragging the tension. Minutes passed, and I couldn't even breathe properly. But Luke broke the silence with his voice lower this time. "So, why are you avoiding me?" I blinked, totally caught off guard by his direct way. "I'm not," I retorted, even though it sounded like a lie to my own ears. "Max," he said with steady eyes, his gaze unflinching. "We both know things changed. You kissed me back. That's not nothing, right?" I opened my mouth to argue, but I couldn't find the right words. The truth hung between us, loud and undeniable, and I hated how that made me feel exposed. "You kissed me back," he repeated, this time with intensity in his tone, which made my stomach flutter and my heart race even more. That has to mean something, or I ruined our friendship for nothing. I panicked. How could he say all that with a blunt face like that? I was sweating in the cold. I wanted to tell him everything, but I was too overwhelmed with new feelings and doubts. The kiss made me feel like we got more fragile than a piece of glass, and I wasn't sure if I could keep it from breaking. I'm scared, Luke," I admitted, my voice cracked. "I don't want to ruin what we have. If we try this, what if it's not what you think it is? What if it changes everything to bad?" The words came out in a rush, and I regretted them instantly. But Luke didn't even look away. He didn't pull back or make any joke like he'd used to. And that got me more scared than anything else. He was deadly serious, nodding slowly. I could see the understanding in his eyes. And also the same doubts. "We don't have to rush anything," he said in a reassuring tone. "We just have to admit we want to try." He stood up and came in my direction. I was up near the window. As the distance was bare minimum again, I heard his voice warmer than ever. "We can take it slow. I just need you to know I'm serious. Sasha didn't lie. I've had a crush on you for ages, but I came to know you might have it too recently. I've been watching, Max. I just need to know if you're okay with trying." I felt my heart skip a beat. I was exposed, but relieved somehow, all at once. His words were a balm that soothed the raw in my nerves, but also felt like an invitation to something I couldn't protect if I accepted. Was it worth the risk? What if I wasn't enough? I let out the breath I didn't even notice I was holding. I don't know how to let go, I said, lowly, my vulnerability hanging in the air. But I want to. I just need some time. Luke smiled, so bright as the sunlight that scraped through my face through the glass. I can wait, he said. I'm not going anywhere, just so you know. Despite all my twitching nerves, in that moment, I chose to believe him. The idea of becoming something new felt both terrifying and exciting. And even like this, Luke was there, giving me space and asking for nothing but a chance. That was the first time my thoughts went from everything wrong to, what if this was right? 3 days later. Luke suggested we go for a walk in the park that morning. If there was a chance to talk, he said, and I agreed, even though the tension was still heavy in my chest like an anchor. Being outside seemed to help. The crisp air, the rustling leaves, the distant hum of the city made me feel like the world had just slowed down for me to catch my breath. Luke touched my arm in a funny way and teased me. You've been weird since we got here, you know that? I let out a genuine laugh. Weird how? Weird like you're killing your neurons with that overthinking that you do. I rolled my eyes at him. He wasn't wrong. I'm fine, I retorted. Liar, he laughed, letting out a soft hum. His hand brushed against mine as we walked, and that sent a jolt through me. I hesitated, but he didn't stop, touching my fingers with care, and before I could think, I was there, entwining my hands with his. He glanced at me with a smirk I'd known for years. See? Not that hard, right? I rolled my eyes again, but the smile on my face betrayed me. You make it sound so simple. Maybe it just is, he said in a lighter tone. The sincerity of those words was something I couldn't ignore. We kept walking hand in hand, small-talking a bit. Then, when we reached the lake, the quiet settled between us again, and for the first time, it wasn't suffocating. Of course, eventually, Luke broke it. You're overthinking again, he said, his thumb caressing over mine. But I like that about you as well, he laughed lowly. Really? I said, glancing at him. Yeah, you care. Too much. It's actually kind of annoying sometimes, but it's one of the best things about you, he said, laughing tenderly. His word hit me weirdly, and I found myself looking away. You make me sound like an open book. You are, he said, squeezing my hand, forcing me to look at him again. But it's okay. I like reading. I couldn't stop the loud laugh I gave out. I shook my head at his ridiculousness. As much as I wanted to deny it, he was the best companion I've ever had, and the carousel of feelings I had inside of me shouldn't have made me hesitate so much while he was so open with his feelings. We then returned to his place, and then we were there, sharing cups of cocoa in his small kitchen. I felt more relaxed now, and that was good. Luke leaned against the counter, watching me with a look that was too soft. My heart raced again against my will. What's with the staring? I asked, frowning in a funny way. Just wondering when your stupid brain will let me in, he said, smiling, but his eyes on me told me he wasn't joking. I blinked. I'm trying. I know, he tilted his head, but you don't have to figure it out all at once, or alone. I'm not going anywhere. I sighed before taking a sip. His words were so simple, but they always hit me deeply. I'm not even sure where I should start with, I said. Luke caressed my free hand, his voice warm but steady again. Start wherever you want. Just don't shut me out, okay? I glanced at him. There was no rush in his expression, no pressure either. Just patience, and something I didn't know how to call. Okay, I said, taking his hand too. Today was good. Right? He smiled brightly, and I felt my world shift. For the first time, I felt that maybe we could work. 4 days later. We agreed to have coffee together again, but as I opened the door the next morning, Luke was there with a small, slightly battered CD case in his hands. My heart raced like I was 16 all over again. "Remember this?" he asked with an excited expression. I stared at the cover, recognizing it instantly. It was our CD. The one we'd played during road trips, late night hangouts, and even when we got lost on a trip and fought in the car until track 5, where we gave up and sang along. "You kept this?" I asked, amused. "Of course I did." He stepped inside like he always did, like he belonged here. "It's the soundtrack of us. I thought this might help you remember that we've always been good together." He smiled, and I knew his words weren't just about the music. I turned the CD cover in my hands, tracing the time marks on it, hoping it would calm the chaos in my head. It didn't, but it did remind me that was our chore. I laughed lowly. Luke found a way of cutting my invisible doubts without much effort. "Thanks," I muttered. "Let's listen to it together later. Now it's coffee time." I nodded, unable to find the words to refuse. Not that I didn't want it either. We went to the same coffee shop as always, and this time we met with some friends from his workplace I hadn't met. I wasn't paying much attention, still a bit off in thoughts about the late gesture and everything it represented. They all ordered, and I could hear the small talk. But then Luke took me off my game. "Oh, I'm sorry, I was so caught up in the talk. I forgot to introduce you." He looked at me while giving me the cup of coffee. "This is Max. Someone special." I froze. 2 words, and my entire world turned upside down. His friend smiled, saying something I don't even remember what I answered to. I glanced at him, but he kept talking like calling me that was the most natural thing on earth. When his friend left, I turned to Luke, my face giving him all the information he needed. "What? It's true." He smirked. I opened my mouth to argue, but the way that was true for me as well made the words die on my tongue. A little after we got back to my apartment, the CD was playing softly in the background. Track 3, my favorite. Luke was sitting on the couch across from me, his knee brushing against mine. He looked completely at ease, while I felt like my chest was about to pop up from the overwhelming emotions, and not the bad kind, just a different one. "You're overthinking again," he said. I laughed nervously, scratching my hair. "Yeah, well, you just casually called me someone special in front of a friend I've never seen. How could I be calm?" He shrugged, his smile widening. "I said what I meant." Again, so simple for him. Why couldn't it be that simple for me as well? I took a deep breath, my fingers fidgeting now on the edge of my shirt. "Okay," I said, admitting my fallout. "I want to try this for real." I finally said, the words feeling heavier than they should, but still, I didn't back out. "I want to be with you. I just didn't realize how much I was holding back until hearing you talk so simply like that." Luke's face lit up, his smile widening in a way that made me feel guilty. He just looked like he had won the best Christmas present in the world. "You have no idea how long I've been waiting to hear you say that." The sincere way he said that hurt so bad that I felt the tears gather. "I mean it," I added. "I'm scared, but I want this. I want you." He reached across the small space between us so fast, his hand covering mine. "Max, you've always had me," he said with a soft tone. "We're already doing this. We just haven't called it what it is." My chest tightened in a good way. Maybe he was right. Maybe we were already halfway there. I just wasn't admitting it. He caressed my cheek, and I let my body slow down, leaning into the touch without thinking too much about it. "I like seeing you give in like this," he commented softly. I huffed a laugh. The world felt smaller again, like it was just the two of us. "You're annoyingly good at this," I said with a pissed tone, but still smiling. "Good at what?" "At making me feel at ease. Like I'm not completely alone or terrified of screwing this up." His grip got steadier. "It's not about getting it perfect. It's about showing up. And you're here, Max. That's enough for me. His sincerity hit me like a storm. I nodded, clearing my throat. Okay, I'll just keep showing up, I said in a cracked voice. Luke smiled and the room felt lighter and brighter. He pressed a kiss onto my forehead. You're doing great, he whispered. I smiled back. Sleep here tonight? I asked, low enough, but I knew he had heard me. Really? Yes. He nodded at me and shut off all my doubts with a sweet and cold lips kiss. The next morning. The smell of garlic filled the kitchen, mingling with the soft aroma of coffee brewing. A reminder that, despite my lack of finesse, I was still trying to cook us breakfast. Luke was standing beside me, casually flipping through a recipe book as if he were an expert, while I was cutting some fruits. You look way too smug for somebody who's only watching, I teased. Watching? I'm here for moral support, he shot back, grinning as he leaned above my hands, inspecting my progress like he was judging a competition. I chuckled. You're ridiculous. And you're burning the bread, he said casually. What? I opened the oven, groaning when it revealed the slightly over-browned loaf that should have been perfect. Damn it! Luke burst out into laughter. Don't even start, I glanced at him. You could have said something sooner. I thought you had it under control, Luke replied, his tone in mocking innocence. Next time it's you on bread duties, he chuckled again. Never. I'll sneak out just to buy fresh ones and you'll never know. I couldn't stop laughing. I was so happy it felt like my chest would burst. We sat down to eat. The ruined bread had been forgotten, replaced by sweet fruits, coffee, our talking voices, and a kind of ease that I hadn't felt in a long time. I found myself staring at Luke a little longer than usual. I couldn't help it. I was just warm and calm. You're staring, he said, smirking. I'm not. He only stared at me until I rolled my eyes. Fine, I am. Can I know why? He teased before taking a bite of a strawberry. It got me thinking. Maybe I was staring because it was the second time I let myself look at him with such clarity. It wasn't just some fleeting crush. Luke wasn't just somebody I was in love with. He was my best friend, my anchor, the one who always knew me before I knew myself. I just shook my head, smiling. Thanks for last night. He blushed and I smiled even more. That was fun too. He took my free hand and mingled out fingers. Anytime. As sunlight streamed through the window, painting us in warm hues, I watched Luke tell a story about a coworker, and I didn't fight that feeling again. That quiet joy and sense of falling into place. We didn't know much about where it was headed, but we knew what we wanted. And that was us together no matter what. I sipped my coffee, finally understanding that showing up was better than hiding. I knew Luke would chase me if I tried it again, and that made me believe in us even more. So cheesy. Like a rom-com. I wouldn't say the years that followed were easy. The fears and doubts inside me weren't so simple to defeat. There were moments when the past crept in, whispering old insecurities and making me question everything. But Luke was always there. With him by my side, I learned how to face those fears, one day at a time. And, just like I promised, I kept showing up. For him, for us, every single day. Now, as I stand here at the altar, 7 years after it all began, looking into his eyes, I know without a doubt, there is no one else in the world I'd rather be with. The end. As they settle into this next chapter, do you think they'll have too many troubles through the next ones? Thanks for watching! Consider subscribing to become a part of our Rainbow Force and stay wholesome!